Alrighty, welcome back to the Blood Bear channel, and in this video we are going to be continuing on with the book of Genesis that I am doing. We are on chapter 2, and that chapter is mainly about the creation of the Garden of Eden, as well as Adam and Eve. So there's not much, because I know I said that I was going to do scientific evidence and stuff. There's not much of that around, because there was the flood that happened. That kind of washes everything away, and we don't even know where the Garden of Eden is. But anyways, let's just jump straight to Genesis chapter 2. I'll go like last time. I'll go and read the chapter, then give my scientific evidence. Again, there's not much, and I will also go ahead and probably do maybe some I don't know. If there's not much scientific evidence, I'm going to try to do some more historical things or stuff, or just kind of try and give context to some things, but it should be enough in there, enough context within the text to allow it to teach what it wants to teach. Anyways, we'll go and get started here. Genesis chapter 2, and it reads, "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done." Okay, so that was verse 2 to 3. Now we get to Adam and Eve. "This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created, when the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. The name of the first is the Pishon. I think that's how you pronounce it. There's so many things in the Bible that's so hard to pronounce, especially names. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is the Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris, or Tigris. It sounds like tiger to me, so I pronounce it Tigris. Or like Tigger the tiger from Winnie the Pooh. It runs along, anyways, back to reading. It runs along the east side of Asher. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. I like how they mention where the river runs along for every other one except for the fourth one. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded the man, You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them, and whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. But for Adam no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs, and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. Alright. And that is the end of Genesis chapter 2. It is a whole 25 verses long, which is actually not that long compared to a lot of the other ones. But yeah. So then, I do think it's a little structured kind of weird, because verses like 1 through 3 are kind of tying up the first chapter of Genesis chapter 1 about how God created, the week of creation that God had, the 6 days, and then he rested the seventh day. And now it does also mention that he made that day holy, which in my mind is kind of like, oh, so that's why, church is always on Sundays. But I mean, I don't know, because that also said that was the last day, right? The final day, the seventh day. And a lot of people, at least quite a few people that I know, consider Sunday to be the first day of the week, instead, not the last. I have my calendar right up here, and it's also on the left-hand side, so it reads first, I guess. But anyways, and then we have verses 4 through 7, which is mainly just about the creation of Adam, and how he was formed from the dust of the earth, and that God breathed life into him through his nostrils. And I think this makes a lot of sense, because if we analyze a lot of organic material, there's like 4 basic things that are found in like every single organic material, in every organic material pretty much, and that is hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. Those are like the 4 building blocks of all organic, like chemistry. But then, it said from the dust, so that also implies that there are non-organics, I guess, would be in it. But also, a lot in the formation of the Earth, at least in what some scientists believe, is that there was a lot of those hydrogen, carbon, and stuff like that. And obviously, there's plenty of oxygen in the air, so that would definitely be in the dust as well. But we also, as humans, have a variety of different metals in our body. Not as much, like we're not made out of metal or anything, but like we have iron and other types of metals, and small traces of metals in our blood. So I think that makes perfect sense. We formed from dust. You get small traces of those from those, so makes perfect sense to me. Okay, and then verses 8 through 14, which is, quite a decent chunk there, and that is literally just geography and environment of the Garden of Eden, not the Eden garden. Um, so, because that talks about, the 4 rivers, that it's like lush and filled with trees and stuff like that, and that it's to the east. Currently, there's not really any location that has been proven to be the Garden of Eden. There's one that's very much speculated. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's like, let me see if I can't find it. It's like there's like a lake, and then there's like a river coming out, and it spreads out into like 3 different rivers, and they're kind of assuming that one kind of, stopped flowing, which makes sense. That's going to be super hard to track down just because of how often the geography kind of changes. Because, you see in the Grand Canyon where there's, just one river flowing through it, and it carved out that massive canyon from just one river. And then also then, if you're a believer in the Bible, then you also know that the flood happened, right? So then that'll drastically change what the land will look like. So it's just going to be, it probably won't ever truly be proved where it is, where the Garden of Eden is, but there's definitely speculation on to where it might be. Okay, verses 15 and 7 through 17 is basically God takes Adam, puts him in the garden, and commands him not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Otherwise, he'll die. And there are people I've seen in some clips and stuff that people kind of question that. They're like, why would he not want us to have the knowledge of good and evil? And to that I'm like, well, because, well, now we do have it, because, Eve got deceived by the serpent, by the devil, and she ate from the said tree, and then so did Adam. So then they got punished and all that. We'll cover that later in future videos, but so we do have that now. And obviously we did not handle it very well, because, there are lots of evil people out in the world. That's probably why God said, hey, don't eat from this. Because we won't be able to really fully, just because we have the knowledge doesn't mean we won't do bad things, right? So that's pretty much why I think God would have, issued that command. I mean, it's not like we didn't have, because even then we still have free choice, right? Because Eve still chose, like, she was coerced, but she still chose to eat from the tree, right? And stuff like that. So there's still free will, and with free will can come those types of outcomes, not so great outcomes. Okay. Anyways, verses 18 to 20 are when Adam names everything. Basically, God puts everything in front of Adam, and he's like, hey, whatever you call them, that's what they'll be named. And that was in pursuit of finding Adam a helper, which they don't end up doing. So then God has to be like, okay, well, I guess none of those animals were good enough. So he puts Adam to sleep, yoinks out one of his ribs, and makes Eve. So there's that. And then he names Eve woman, because came out of man, and stuff like that. I don't know what to tell you about that. But then they also go on in verses 23 and 24. That's verse 23 is whenever Adam is naming Eve, calling Eve a woman, basically, whenever he names woman. And then in verse 24, they're talking about like more of like the sanctity of marriage, or like just generally what marriage is, and how Adam how a man leaves his father and his mother in pursuit of for his wife, and then they get married, and they become one flesh, basically. That's what that is about. And then we get to the final verse 25. In that one, it's basically, I think it's kind of just more of like how we know that they haven't eaten from the tree yet is because they're both naked and they're unashamed of being naked. So that is just kind of showing that they haven't eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil yet. But we know that they do, so spoilers, right? Anyways, that was it for this video. It's the conclusion here. Yeah, that was just some of my thoughts on it. There was a little, I guess, scientific evidence, a little with the whole, what our human bodies are made out of. But again, from now on, most of it is probably just going to be some history, and then maybe some discoveries that have happened, because I know archaeologists and stuff utilize the Bible as a historical tool a lot of times, and they've found a multitude of cities and towns that are in the Bible that they've found. So, but other than that, so there won't be many scientific evidence going forward, I don't believe, but we'll see. And so other than that, I'll probably try to maybe also focus on historical evidence and giving my thoughts on what moral lessons it's trying to teach, or it's trying to convey, I guess. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.